Tell me how Lube is going to build my business.
This is the race car framework, and it's what the fastest growing startups are using to scale.
This is actually a 3-step framework to never run out of content ideas.
Then Calm collected 100,000 emails with this one video, and it's just waves crashing for 2 minutes.
He's going to really want to change the color of that thing because right now it does not stand out.
To build that race car, you need turbo boost, you need lubricant, you need a growth engine. All right, we're back. Another episode of Sweat Equity, episode 27. I got the number down this time around. One cool thing to touch on was, so the last episode is like our best episode on YouTube for you and I recording solo dolo. So one note that I just want to give the audience was, for that episode, we had actually packaged it up, thumbnail, title, text that was going to be on the thumbnail, the hook, the trailer, all of that was pre-planned. And it goes to show you that if you do that work beforehand, it's going to lead to better results. And I learned that, I think it was from like Cleo Abram. I was listening to something from hers, and then this other guy, Ryan, who worked with Jubilee Media, that is like, it's all about how you package an idea before you ever film the idea.
Yeah, I saw Patty Galloway said that as well.
Yeah.
He had a really interesting viewpoint on how to package your stuff so that it addresses a large market. Did you see that the other day? He had an awesome breakdown where he basically just talked about how your packaging and your click-through rate, and I mean, it's your headline and your thumbnail are all that matters on YouTube. And for us, overperforming on YouTube equals more than our subscribers, obviously. And so the packaging, to your point, $40 million selling tape, that's a lot more broad and intriguing, curiosity building than maybe some of our more tactical, only directed at marketing people.
Imagine if it would have said like hostage tapes,
Marketing
8-figure funnel, or whatever, like Facebook funnel.
Right.
It's like, it is so targeted towards just marketers. But yeah, the idea of this company sells this does $40 million selling tape is like, it creates one, that curiosity gap. And then two, it's broad enough where if you're a product marketer, if you're a growth marketer, if you're a founder, if you're a COO, like it's still interesting to you. Yeah,
for sure. And I mean, generally we want our content's going to perform the best with people who are interested in business content.
100%.
It's going to, most people will be retained that way.
Yeah.
You click on hour-long video about someone selling tape, you might be a little shocked when it's like a just quick 10-minute explainer.
Yeah.
But
so what do you got this episode?
Yeah. So I got a content framework that people can use to just never run out of ad concepts. So a lot of people ask, my team's shipping right now around 300 videos per month. And people think it's a lot, but in actuality, if you just start from this framework, you can come up with ideas at scale every week. And this is kind of how you test different hooks, audiences, angles, offers. And from there, it's like, you just got to understand basically who your audience is and get granular about talking to their pain points and their problems. Because ultimately, if your product doesn't solve a problem for these people, it's not going to sell anyway.
100%.
But helping people sell based on outcomes rather than just features.
Yeah, I like that. On my end, I have what's called the race car framework. So it's this idea of when you look at a company that's grown very fast, and from the outside in, it looks very simple. But when you actually break down a race car, there are so many components that make up a race car. And so you want to look at growth through the same lens of like, here's the growth engine, but what are the lubricants? What's the fuels? What are the tires, et cetera? And how it all plays in to make this essentially this Formula One race car, which is in this case your startup's growth. So I'm going to dive into that, and that's all due to this article from Lenny. I don't know how to say his last name. I'm not even going to try.
Radichowski?
Yeah, see, if I try that, man, that's bad. Radichowski?
Might get canceled. All right, dude, so tell me how you're going to use lube to grow my business.
That's so good. Okay, so this is the race car framework. So there's the idea that on the outside, a race car is very simple. It's aerodynamic body. It's built for speed. It has dope tires, et cetera, right? Like, it just looks beautiful from the outside. But what if I told you that an F1 car was built up of 14,000 different components to make up one car, right? That is a lot. That is a lot of different pieces that make up what can go 260 or 270 miles per hour. And so a good growth strategy is the same. Outside looking in, it looks very simple. It doesn't look complicated, but there's so many different things that you have to worry about. You have to figure out, like, what is the growth engine? Are you doing paid or SEO or virality? How are you increasing your conversion rate? How are you increasing retention? All of these different things. So which is why the race car framework is important, because it's the infrastructure to build an 8 to 9 figure startup, right? It's the infrastructure to help you scale and then also just maintain that velocity to take off. So what are the pillars of the growth framework? So the first one and the most important one is the growth engine. This is something like SEO, paid ads, sales, virality, these different pillars within this beast. And these are the things that are really fueling growth. But then there's other aspects that affect the growth engine and also kind of improve the efficiency of the growth engine, right? So there's turbo boosts, lubricants, fuel, mid-stage growth accelerants, and kickstarts. So for a lot of the people that listen to our podcast, they're probably in the area of, like, for example, Braxton, he's doing kickstarts, right? These are how are you going to get your first 1,000 customers, which we'll talk about in a second. And then there are companies that also listen to the podcast where they have all of these things, or they have the ability to create all these things, but they only have a growth engine. You know, I'm talking to somebody that's potentially going to be a client now, and like they have the growth engine right now, which is just paid ads, and they have, you know, a very big individual that could fuel nearly everything, but they don't have turbo boost, lubricants, fuel, mid-stage growth accelerants. They don't have to worry about kickstarts because of that individual, but like there's so much money to be left, or so much money left on the table because they don't have the rest of the infrastructure. And what's interesting about it is that a lot of these 8 and 9 figure brands, is the reason they could scale to that level is because of infrastructure, right? It's not because they're doing something revolutionary and so innovative and so amazing and all the other buzzwords. It's like they have the infrastructure to be able to get from 7 to 8 figures and 8 figures to 9 figures. So we're going to dive through each one and kind of give perspective. So the first thing is, let's talk about the most obvious. This is the growth engine. So the growth engine is what your business lives on. It's how you get from A to B, B to Z, B to C, C to D, etc. You know, when we were at the hustle, when I was at the hustle, it first started as SEO. Like SEO was the growth engine very early on, before like I was even there. Then it transitioned to paid ads as they scaled, right? They got their first few 100,000 subs via SEO and paid ads, but SEO is the main driver. Then paid ads. At the collective, it was organic content. We filled up the pipeline all organically through the content that our team was creating, right? Like Charles was there. We were creating a ton of content, had all the different pillars, looked at it from a top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom funnel perspective, and we fueled lead gen through organic content, and the sales team took it over. But the growth engine really was on the back end of, you know, were we putting out enough output to create an input, which was lead generation. If we talk about Olipop, for Olipop, it was influencers. It was influencers and organic. It was leveraging all these different influencers to create like hashtag Olipop partner, create a bunch of content, following it down, TikTok, create all this massive awareness. It flies off the shelves, right? So it's essentially, what is the thing that's getting the biggest investment and two investments, right? It is, what is the thing that is getting the most investment from a cash perspective and time perspective? That is what's going to be your growth engine. And this is the most obvious one, right? Because any brand knows, like, you're really going to have one or two things that you're doing that really drive all of the growth, but there's all the other things that you're going to be doing that are going to help essentially make the growth more efficient and more cost effective.
Yeah. And it seems like most brands should understand what growth engine to pick as well. I think that's something that a lot of people don't appreciate, is not every business should be built on paid ads on Meta. There are a lot of businesses that actually need to do different things. For example, there's a sports tech client that I work with, and one of their primary methods of lead gen was just running Facebook ads to get soccer coaches to, sign up for as a lead and like input their information. But we recently found out like those leads were very unqualified. And while we might be getting, 500 to 1,000 per month, if those aren't converting that well, then, it's a very like B2B sales driven process. Yeah. And so instead, their focus in their marketing budget should be allocated towards in-person events. So they do a partnership event with one of their existing customers, where they invite, local clubs, local coaches to come out. They work with a bunch of MLS teams, for example. Yeah. And so they're able to say, hey, this is our MLS client. They're basically giving a testimonial for you in front of this entire audience, which is now highly qualified. That's where they're putting their meta ad spend, is driving signups to those events.
Smart.
Rather than doing now these just like cold lead forms. Their salespeople get pissed off because they're just constantly talking to shitty leads. Yeah. Instead of, hey, you filled out information, you came to the event, and you're now basically sold from one of our partners on this product. Yeah. Okay, now you're a very qualified lead for me to reach out to. Like, they get a lot better deal flow there. So
Athletic Brewing's another one that was similar to that, where, you know, a lot of people would say, oh, run paid ads, do organic. And they were like,
right.
No. Our growth engine is going to be, we're going to go to where these people are finishing or doing different events. So running a 5K, Spartan race, like all these kind of Tough Mudder, like all those kinds of events.
Yeah.
All those people are the people that love to drink craft beer on a Saturday after a bike ride or something like that. We're going to go to those events. It was like 3,500 events in 1 year, like 3,500 events in 1 year. That's, I don't want to do public math, but that's actually like 10 events a day, right? Like, so you have to have a large team to be able to execute something like that. But it's they're now the top craft brewery in the US. I don't know if you knew that, but like that is a crazy stat for a company. It doesn't even sell beer, right? They sell non-alcoholic beer.
For sure.
So the next thing is Kickstarts. This is for a newer brand. This is for a brand trying to gain traction. You're trying to get your first 1,000 customers, right? So these are the things that are not scalable. But your goal is to really gain traction, find your ideal customer, and then prove that there's demand. So when I think of tactics here, I'm thinking of tactics like sharing with friends and colleagues, right? Like just hand-to-hand combat, reaching out to targeted strangers, kind of using different communities to create a bunch of content for that community, then pitch your product on the back end. This is getting press, creating some viral content, or creating some kind of stunt. In this case, hosting an event, but not as like a main pillar in your growth strategy, but just to like gain some of that initial traction, or, you know, even being first on a platform, right? I think there was a lot of companies that were probably built on the back end of Clubhouse when Clubhouse had their moment, you know, and are they still around? I don't know, but they probably had that moment of like, hey, we just grew to 100,000. Like, we know we need to get them here. We need to get them on this email list or this SMS list. And they could do that because they were first on the platform.
Yeah. A lot of crypto company, that was a big thing for a lot of software and crypto companies at the time, was they were able to create these high signal chat rooms, right? Where a lot of the people that actually would get their message and gave a shit about them were able to concentrate, versus if you're just putting out really technical Twitter or, you know, LinkedIn content about your software product and trusting that the algorithm is going to amplify that, then you're pretty screwed.
100%.
But being able to create those closed loop communities was, it makes a lot of sense.
For the Kickstarters, I like to take it from this idea that Noah Kagan had, where it's like, here's the framework for getting your first 1,000 customers. And it's fairly simple. Your first 50 are going to be purely hand-to-hand combat. The next like 50 to 100 and something is going to be like going to the buffet. You go to Golden Corral, you see everything. You come in with a hungry stomach and you're just like, I'm gonna get 2 plates. I'm gonna stack them up. I'm gonna try everything. You get to the table, and you really only like 3 of the 4 things, and so you really just focus on those. Like, you take a bite of this, and you're like, damn, that's not good. You take a bite of this, oh, it's okay. You take a bite of this, damn, that's good. Right? It's the same idea of going to a buffet. You're trying a bunch of different channels. You're trying an event. You're trying influencers. You're trying to paid ads, organic, whatever, and you're really seeing what sticks. Then you're going to refine it and like kind of take those 3 to 5 things and see, okay, what has the potential to 10x here? Mm-hmm. And what can my team, depending on the team size, can help it 10x? Then from there, and that's like 100 to 500 really. Then 500 to 1,000 is, all right, what am I scaling? What did have 10x potential? And so I am 10xing it. And then after that is like, well, what is the flywheel that I could build on the back end of it? So third in the race car framework is turbo boost. These are kind of like one-off events that really help fuel growth temporarily, but it doesn't last long, right? It's just, again, you go to the movie theater, you're playing Fast and the Furious, you're trying to whip your girlfriend, and you're getting close to the end. Now, we went to Dave & Buster's recently, and boy, I was hitting them turbo boosts.
Yeah. No.
I left with 1 loss and probably 15 wins, Vanessa. But the turbo boost is like, you're just pressing that button. Anytime you need a little bit of growth, you need some more traction, address a new market, whatever, you hit these turbo boosts. And so think things that are like hosting an event, creating viral content, getting PR, influencers to mention you, whatever it is. So a few examples that come to mind here are, so Sweet Green, they had a music festival called Sweet Life. And they did that for 6 or 7 years. And that like helped them really take off. But it was something that they did once a year. It wasn't how they were growing year over year. It was just how they were like, again, hitting that turbo boost to take them from B to C.
Yeah.
Right. And it was one of these things. The other one is Noah Kagan. Like when he was prepping for his launch for $1 Million Weekend, he went on a hard podcast tour where he was on probably 10 to 15 different podcasts talking about how to get your $1 Million Weekend, all the way from, I think it was like MFM to with Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, I remember that. That was insane.
Yeah.
And borderline obnoxious. I think, like, I was not ever. That was actually crazy because it totally worked.
It did.
And the wild part is guys like you and me saw everyone copy and paste I just bought 25 books so I could give them away to you. And it's like Noah's obviously sending them 25 bucks, which was like so brilliant.
He did his fucking job. You know what I mean? Like he 100%. Did his job.
And by the end of it, I was like, man, I don't want to buy this fucking book at all. Like I would actually.
That's why you're gonna have a 6-figure weekend.
Yeah, for sure.
You ain't gonna have $1 million weekend, bro.
Shit, I'm still waiting on that. But I mean, no, what you're kind of talking about too is inflection points, and something that a lot of people that I talk to, at least in this whole agency world, talking to brand owners, is this is actually something people screw up a lot, and they will put all of their eggs in one basket, you know. So we have a buddy that has a men's designer fashion brand. And I remember talking to him at the beginning of his business and his launch, and he was partnering with a really well-known reality TV influencer. And I knew, and I told him
Bad idea.
I told him this. I was like, this is a horrible allocation of your equity, which is his most valuable resource at the time. And not only is it a massive miss on just overall, you give them equity, it doesn't work out, you got to get the equity back. It's the opportunity cost of that time. Yeah. And that time for a business, like, you have to be careful about what you actually put your eggs into. It sounds really, obvious, but so many people mess that up because they just get blinded by big following. Big following equals results. I could come up with 10 different campaigns where people have a large following, but because that following's not high signal, the brand partnership doesn't work. Couple of contrasts to that, which this is maybe a playbook on how to look for alignment, is Carnivore Snacks. Their inflection point was Joe Rogan. They got some carnivore snacks, which are these meat chips, these dehydrated meat chips, ribeyes, whatever cut of meat, skirt steak. They got him in front of Joe Rogan, and Joe organically said, dude, have you tried this on one of his podcasts?
They still run that shit as ads.
Yeah. And now Joe Rogan's literally, that turns into a licensing deal. It turns into all this different stuff. Partnership, there's a ton of alignment there. Everyone knows that Joe loves meat. So if he's recommending a meat snack, it's going to hit.
I feel like they should do like Rogan's ribeyes
or
something like that. They need to make some product with him.
It's interesting that he's on the homepage, but they haven't done a licensed product.
Collab.
But that was a huge inflection point for them. I also know that Hexclad took a moonshot marketing. Shout out Raba. Like they took a moonshot of putting the JRE, the Joe Rogan Experience logo on the center of one of their pins.
So good.
And they sent it to Joe.
And he posted that bitch.
And it took like 3 months for Joe to post that.
Really?
Yeah. Like it took like 3 months. It was one of those like, oh shit, I don't know if it worked out. Like we'll see what happens.
But again, like what did that cost Hexclad? A few $100, maybe $1,000?
Yeah, nothing.
Like it's not a big deal.
Right. And from there on out, like they've had that as, a piece of organic marketing. So
and that is one of the turbo boosts here. It's like, it's get an influencer to mention you, right? Like in this case, he's a macro influencer. He's basically he is a celebrity at this point.
Oh, yeah.
But it is getting in the right influencer to mention you because it could take you again from here to here. Lovesick, they had it with OBJ.
Yeah.
Like OBJ, for people that don't know, Lovesick is an apparel brand.
Yeah.
They had OBJ like rocking some of their gear, and it was an inflection point. That's how I found out about them. Yeah. And then, Triple Whale does the Whaleys. Again, a big event. Micro Acquire did this thing with when they were launching bootstrappers that they went hard, right? Because another turbo could be creating controversy, so it creates conversations.
Yeah.
And Micro Acquire did this with bootstrappers, where they did beef marketing. They went after TechCrunch, and they created all this controversy around TechCrunch never covering people that essentially have wins that aren't bootstrapped, or that they don't raise funding. Another cool one that I really liked was Calm. So Calm, the meditation app.
Yeah.
So when they were launching, they created this website that was just like, can you watch these waves can you watch these waves crash for 2 minutes? Mm-hmm. And it was nothing but a video for 2 minutes that's just like waves crashing. And it got hundreds and thousands of, or if not millions of views. And on the back end of the 2 minutes, like when you completed it, they had an email collection form. And that one thing, that little PR stunt, got them 100,000 email addresses.
Wow.
Right. And that was like their inflection point to be like, okay, we can now launch. We have a lot of traction. We can launch.
Yeah.
Just again, turbo boost, things that help you climb a mountain really fast.
Yeah. Another, that just reminded me of all of these different live streams or 20-hour YouTubes of just calm jazz cafe music stuff. Such an opportunity for a calm competitor to basically launch and go YouTube first and just accumulate like millions of subscribers from their different like live streams and soothing music.
I even think like Bum Energy. Why would you not create a ton of playlists on YouTube and you're curating them yourself and they're all brought to you by Bum Energy?
Yeah, absolutely. Tyler,
super easy thing to do.
The Beehive dude, Tyler Dank, he
did that.
Used Big Desk Energy, which was his work vibes playlist to build his audience initially. That was his first thing he built an audience with outside of just working at Morning Brew. And now it's obviously the title of his own newsletter. And then they just closed a freaking $32 million Series B today. So
today, Beehive?
You didn't see that?
No.
Yeah. $32 million.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That's a lot of money for
all
newsletters.
To take down ConvertKit.
Yeah. Which is,
you see all their beef on Twitter.
It's awesome.
It's so good.
It's so sick. What else you got?
Okay. So I'll run through them because we're bleeding into time here. So the next thing is lubricants. It's how you're going to build your company with lube, Brian. But no, lubricants is how you make everything more efficient, right? You don't want a rusty old growth engine. You want it to run efficiently. So this is things like increasing your conversion rate, increasing retention, brand awareness, increasing prices. All of these things fall into the lubricants, the things that are affect the outcome of the growth engine. So you get somebody in the door, you now need to get them to stay in the house, right? That happens via these lubricants. So these are things like testing different landing pages versus product pages versus a catalog page, or an educational landing page versus like a direct response landing page. Again, having some infrastructure to actually test at scale. So there's a lot of companies that I've been meeting with lately that they're running, significant amount of money in paid ads. Dude, they've been running it to the same landing page the entire time, same product page the entire time.
Yeah.
They're not testing anything. They don't have any infrastructure to scale or test the different landing pages. And that's just you throwing money down the drain.
You want to
wasting money down the drain.
Yeah, my buddy had one of the most counterintuitive, but also made so much sense realizations from this. He runs a men's jewelry brand, and he had a bunch of bundles he was testing at 4 different price points or 3 different price points. He was testing at $68, $75, and $88. And ironically enough, the one that converted the best was $88. So not only are you leaving money on the table from a conversion perspective, but not testing those little variables is going to completely, it's such a no-brainer. It should be a part of your strategy. And it's so easy too to just workshop different words into your hooks, workshop different angles, test different things.
So that's one of the things on here is the increasing price. About you don't know if your product is actually priced at the right price. Like you just said, there's a big difference between 68 and 88, and all it did was take one test to figure out, or 2 tests probably, to figure out somebody's willing to pay 88 and it has the highest conversion rate because maybe the perceived value is way higher than 68,
exactly.
So therefore they're going to purchase it.
Yeah.
The other thing, like thinking about onboarding flows or cancellation flows, I really liked Athletic Greens. I think I talked about it on the pod, but it was like one of the biggest objections is taste for Athletic Greens. It tastes terrible. It's atrocious. So when you cancel your subscription because of it, they have a flow for if you select taste that it's like, here's how to combat the bad taste. Make this smoothie, and they give you a bunch of recipes, and then they give you like an option to save a little bit and stay on your subscription. So this is how you're fixing these lubricants to, again, increase your retention rate, which then affects your growth engine because it affects your customer lifetime value, which is affected then by your CAC, right? So the next thing is mid-stage growth accelerants. These are things like adding channel partners, expanding geographically, or expanding categories. And again, they're not really growth engines, but it is something that it could really re-accelerate growth. The company I think of is Haven. Haven started as a CrossFit bag, and then they expanded into other sports, and they're expanding into other sports. And so they had like this monumental growth taking over CrossFit. And then I don't want to say it was stagnant because I don't know the details, but it wasn't like there's a ceiling that you're going to hit when you're focusing on one sport. Mm-hmm. But now track starts hitting you up, and basketball, and you start getting a lot of interest. And so you expand into that category, and that could help you go from here to slowly grow into, and now we're riding this wave.
Yeah.
And so, the other one's Rogue Fitness. They did the same thing, landed took over CrossFit, expanded into Olympic lifting and powerlifting, etc. Then the last one is fuel. So there's three parts of fuel. How do you continuously do this so that it's now a loop versus just a funnel? And the first one is, well, it's that essentially the fuel is the input that your engine runs on. So you need either content, users, or capital. Content in this case, let's think SEO. More content you put out, the more chances of ranking for something, the more chances of getting discovered and people coming into your funnel. Users, the same thing like with Tinder. The more users it has, the more virality it has. And that's the same thing with a lot of these companies, right? The same thing with Airbnb. The more users it has, the more virality it has. Mm-hmm. Then last is capital, right? You have a lot of money in the bank, or you make money because your growth engine is running efficiently and you pour it back into it. So the whole goal is to understand what input creates an output that creates another input, and understanding that's either going to come from content, users, or capital. So again, this is the framework that if you are trying to build out an entire growth engine for your startup, for your company, and trying to get from 7 to 8 figures, you have to build out the race car. You have to understand that race car isn't just a few pieces. You're not going to build a 8-9 figure startup just on the back end of paid ads. Like it's happening now, Meta could be all over the place, and all of a sudden, revenue's down 50%. So understanding that you have to build out the entire race car before you're trying to just, focus on one thing, hone in on that one thing. If not, you're going to leave a lot of money on the table.
Yeah, super useful. Definitely. And it's one of those things, first principles, you should just be looking at when you're planning out a business. You have to have a baseline understanding of what your go-to-market strategy is going to be. And all you have to do is follow all of those different things, map out what they could be. Yeah. What are the inputs? I don't have any cash, but I do have a lot of free users. Yeah. Or I do have a lot of people on my email list. So there's your fuel. Like, just think about those things from what, you have. And I think it's a really good place to start.
So I want to know about this idea generation content frameworks, because I'm putting out a piece of content every day and it feels like I'm running out of ideas, or I'm repackaging the ideas that I just put out. So yeah. Hit me.
For sure. This is more of a way to come up with ads, but it certainly, I thought about you actually when I was making this, because you are making content for free for people to grow audience to then monetize downstream. And so I do think this can apply in the same way, because it's kind of how we mentioned in the enemy framework. It's a little counterintuitive to believe that the enemy doesn't have to be a singular competitor or person. It can be an entire behavior in an industry. Similarly with this, we've got 3 components, and it may seem as though you don't have a physical product that you're selling, and so it's not applicable, but I do think there will be some learnings from this. And I want to tie it into, we've been talking about doing more how we'd grow, and from listeners who have really supported the pod, left reviews, all that sort of stuff, and told a lot of people about it. So Braxton mainly has Mystic Mastic Gum, and we've teased this before, but I think this is a great way to leverage like all of these different components, and he can just come up with, here's your first 10 ad ideas, here's your first 6 ad ideas right off the bat. So it's a 3-pronged strategy, and it's offer, audience, and angle. So you want to start by holding one thing constant. Choose your best offer. For Braxton, this is, where are you most profitable? Is it selling 3 cans of the gum? Is it selling 5?
Yeah.
Is it selling 7 with a subscription discount for 20% off? Like, identify what your hero offer is, and that's where you want to start from this perspective. This should happen if you have multiple products. You should also identify that. And that can have different, you can experiment with free shipping, you can experiment with bundles, you can experiment with upsells, whatever it is, but find your best offer. And then from there, you want to think about 3 different audiences that are going to be interested in that product. And you want to be pretty specific here. So for Braxton, he is talking about his product it helps you get a better jawline because it makes you chew really aggressively. And so that will refine your jawline, make you have stronger jaw muscles. Funny? And so naturally that's going to appeal to people who are kind of these looks maxers folks on social, who are actively trying to create a better aesthetic. A lot of people do this. Maybe you get more granular with that, and you're people who can't afford plastic surgery but are self-conscious about their jawline. So now you've got a really highly targeted audience to create a very specific angle with. A second audience for him could be people with health issues. He talks very specifically that chewing this mastic gum helps stimulate better digestion and is a way for people to improve their gut health challenges. So, from there, it's like there's a million different gut health supplements out there, but you're kind of coming at it with a unique angle from the gum thing.
It's unlike any other.
Yeah.
angle.
Like I'm intrigued if you're telling me this gum can fix my stomach problems. And then the last one is definitely people that distrust big CPG, people that don't want to chew 5 gum or juicy fruit because of artificial flavors, because it's heavily processed, put in plastic, all sorts of stuff like that. So I think you've got 3 core audiences right there. Next, you're going to come up with 2 different angles for each audience. So for the looks maxers, improve your jawline or create a more angular face. If you want to, and those are separate, by the way. Like number 1 would be, are you tired of your side profile looking like shit? And then number 2 could be get a leaner face. Like you can just do different side profile. You can do straight on. Narrow in on that specific angle. And from there, you're going to do that for the next audience. So you have people with health issues and, this solves their gut health problems. Well, by just solving the gut, like people who are experiencing the problem is not the end step. You need to go one layer further. So what does mastic gum do? It doesn't just fix your gut health problems. You have to educate on why it does that, or else people are going to call bullshit on you. So you have to take them through the different stages of awareness, education. And so how does it fix digestion? Because it promotes better chewing. Food that is chewed better is going to be easier digested. So you're chewing better because your jaw is stronger through using our gum. There's also the concept that it promotes a healthier microbiome. So there's more education that the gut microbiome and the oral microbiome are connected. And chewing gum does have direct scientific studies that say it improves your oral microbiome's health. Therefore, it trickles downstream into your gut health. Those are the specific things that you should be putting into an ad, not just, hey, we fix your gut health. Because now you're not going to actually be convincing anyone of what your product actually does. You have to take it that next step further to provide that novelty, that uniqueness that they feel like they haven't seen elsewhere or other people have spoken too generic to the problem. The last one, people who distrust big CPG, again, he does say it's toxic free, but I think you want to integrate a little more buzzwords. Yeah. No PFAS. PFAS. Yeah,
I don't know
PFAS.
what that shit is.
It's like polyfluoroalkyl. It's basically
ain't none of that.
Huh?
I said ain't none of that.
Yeah. It's I just simply couldn't pronounce this word, but it's a group of chemicals that basically are used to protect processed foods. It's the forever chemicals that are, poisoning Americans. A lot of people are kind of getting woke to that. And for sure with Mystic Mastic, you're going to be communicating to an audience that would understand that buzzword. Like incorporate these buzzwords. Don't just go toxic free, like go another step further. And then to that same point, so that's the first one in terms of something that big CPG is poisoning you with. The second one would be no artificial flavors. So it's actually flavor free, the gum is.
Interesting.
Yeah. And if you think about like, how is Juicy Fruit making their stuff taste good? It's got to be.
So good.
It's
40
diesel.
years later, so good.
Haven't missed.
4 or 5 minutes.
Unbelievable. Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame.
But probably not that good for you. And like, if you're positioning yourself as an alternative, differentiating from them, they've been using artificial flavors and we don't. It also positions him more as a function and a mechanism rather than a consumable, if that makes sense. Where it's this action that you're taking rather than just enjoying the chewing of gum, which could be an interesting positioning as well. So to recap, you want to come up with what is your best offer. That is, maybe it's a bundle, maybe it's a subscribe and save, maybe it's whatever is best for your business, whatever sells the most but is also healthiest for your bottom line. 2, choose 3 very unique audiences and be very specific about those audiences. And 3, 2 specific angles for those 3 audiences. That'll give you 6 ideas for every single offer that you have. Yeah. And if you could kind of tell from that, you can A/B test different ways to communicate those things. It's very easy to turn that 6 into 12 into 18. Yeah. And now you can talk about, how do you do a different format? So this is something, back to your point about how do I come up with stuff? Like, you've got all your playbooks that you've done where you've basically done talking head for the last like 6 to 8 months. And that's been really effective. Something that Oren and Landforce seem to be saying is that they're experimenting with different formats. Landforce is yapping. Oren's trying high quality camera edits. Your next move would probably be to just experiment with the same content packaged in a different way,
100%.
in a different format. So instead of
100%.
green screening, now you're doing like heavily produced, like Cleo Abrams style.
Yeah.
Or, maybe it's like a full faceless edit or something like that. So
I'm also repackaging. So like, I have the playbooks, and then I take the playbook and I repackage it into a different format that's brands doing marketing right. And it's a little more surface level, godlike view or bird's eye view versus like so in detail with the playbook. And then the other one then is like good content versus bad content, or good growth versus, or good marketing versus bad marketing, and kind of taking all the same things, but like just packaging them a little bit different.
Yeah.
Then for Braxton, the other thing that I think of that he can do on his end is if like we're doing a little bit of free game, those 3 audiences that you're talking about, that's who he should be doing his influencer seeding with, because those individuals, they're going to put it out on their pages, etc. And that's going to create this like perception that Mystic Gum is everywhere. Once you create that perception, now you're running those ads that you're talking about. It only fuels that perception. The other thing is, based on the education that he needs to do for the different types of audiences, he needs to then create advertorials that are like 5 reasons why Mystic Gum will help with your, or why chewing gum will help with your, your digestive issues. 5 reasons why this is going to help you have a better jawline. 5 reasons why XYZ. And then you're going to bundle in your offers into those pages. Again, hostage tape, top tier at this. But for Braxton, I'm thinking like piggybacking off exactly what you said. Understand what those 3 audiences are, seed influencers that fit the criteria for those 3 audiences, and then create whatever the problems and the angles are that you are creating for those audiences. Make advertorial landing pages for those listicles, for those angles and audiences.
Yeah, definitely. It's an interesting category too, because gum is a consumable. It's a routine based product. So if you get sticky with someone, there's potential to get a really strong AOV. I mean, I don't know if you've seen, like, some of my boys would have Zyn stacks for, years. It's like they're preparing for an apocalypse.
I think Charles used to be like that.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me.
When we were doing Rare Air, like, this man was just throwing Zyn packs back.
Yeah, no, and like, it's startling. Some of the mountains that people will accumulate of these things because they don't want to run out.
Yeah.
Not saying you're going to, maybe you throw some nicotine in this thing, see what the fuck happens. But like, I think if you can become integral to someone's like routine, which, promote, like saying stick with me for 3 months to get a real chiseled jawline, like it's a pretty good pitch.
It's doable. That's Magic Mind does the same thing. It's like, you need to wean off of caffeine. It's going to happen overnight. You need to stick with us for 3 months. So we have a 100-day guarantee that, like, if you don't like it, it's not working for you. We'll give you all your money back. And they need to have something like that they're going to have interesting landing pages when it's like gum product page with just before and afters for jawlines. It's going to, that's going to be pretty cool.
For sure.
I like their branding too.
It's swag.
They nailed the branding, because I think we've been talking about, if you want to find, like, there's so many 7 to 8, 9-figure brands that live in grocery stores within products that just have never been innovated on or haven't been innovated on in years. Gum's one of them.
I'm not going to lie though. As far as product and merchandising goes, to your point about what you just said, I would not make the can white. I'd make it red.
Yeah.
I'd make it like really bright, like noticeable, can't miss red.
Yeah.
Because I think this white can will get looked over in any sort of retail scenario.
That was like Noah Kagan. He with his book, he tested all sorts of different variations of colors.
It's like bright green, right?
It's bright green. And he ran ads, and the bright green had the highest click-through rate.
Yeah.
Then he went to a bookstore and he put all the books in different shelves for just for the hell of it, and looked at, okay, if I put $1 Million Weekend right here, what stands out? And green stood out by a landslide. So, it's another thing, like for Braxton, test the white can versus a red can. That's a very easy thing to test, because you could do it with product mock-ups.
Yeah, and you can also do it. You can do a product. This is a mock-up on his website. Yeah. This is not a real can. And then I think also, not to out you, bro, but I think you have an unflavored and white. Yeah. Do you want to do like a strawberry and red? Like, there's an opportunity to create cherry, flavors through your product here. Another thing I wonder if he could do, I was just thinking about some dumb shit that could be funny, is like, could you package this like right before, could you put it right outside of a bunch of photo booths? You know, could you put it outside of these common scenarios where people are about to take their picture and be like, just for a quick, like, you know, get that jawline snatched and start kind of like just creating videos around that. Could be a stupid way to, you know, so stupid it's smart, like way to actually get some just organic views. Just think about like viral stunts, because you do have this, you know, speaking of packaging, there is not a soul in the world that wouldn't be intrigued by a little bit better of a jawline.
Nope.
Right? And so putting it in those scenarios could be kind of interesting if you just plug and play and create content around it.
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to the turbo boost. Like, figure out what is your turbo boost.
Yeah.
You know, at the beginning, like, what is the thing that's going to help you gain a lot of traction fast and get a lot of eyeballs, conversations, and customers to see your product?
Here's the counterintuitive thing for him. Do not give this to someone with an already sick jawline.
Yeah.
Give it to the person with the worst jawline in the world, and then do a transformation, and then just pay for some plastic surgery to get their jawline crazy, and you're good. Not that that's very ethical, but...
You got anything else?
I mean, if they're still in the episode at this point, they get that gem, I feel like.
That's fine. All right, so wrapping up, you know, the main thing that I want people to take away from this, 2 parts. The first is you need to build infrastructure to scale, especially if you're at that premise, like that moment where you can build an 8-figure startup, but right now you're a 7-figure startup, and you just need to build that bridge to 8 figures. It's gonna be on the back end of infrastructure unless you have massive distribution.
Yeah.
And then on your end, I mean, you just gave it a great framework for being able to just spit out ads at scale. And I think that's important as well, because everybody talks about, you know, on Meta right now, that creative is everything. You need to be able to test at scale, create at scale, and that creative does the targeting. And the only way to do that is if you have a framework at which you can create creative at very fast speeds. And, you know, and you provided, honestly, a very good framework for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think creative is the moat these days. That's truly the biggest thing that you can do to differentiate yourself. And whenever you're making that creative and you're thinking about your angle, think about how to pattern interrupt someone's scroll.
Yes.
It's not just enough to get their attention. You actually have to ingrain whatever thought you're trying to get them to think in their brain. It's not enough to just say, fix your gut health.
Yeah.
This is the thing that fixes your gut health that you haven't thought about.
Something else that I saw recently was like to kind of pattern interrupt. So say I'm doing a talking head and I'm like, this is how this gum is going to help fix your gut health. But while I'm saying that, instead of just saying it with green screen like I do, I'm saying it, but I'm also like tossing something up and down. And it's minimal, but it's like this act of doing 2 things at once is what's interesting and gets somebody hooked to the point where now they have to watch the rest of the video. So yeah, a lot of things that you could do on that side. But B, where can they find you?
Just on Twitter at Brian_Bloom and on IG at Brian_Bloom.
Dope. On my end, you can find me at Alex Garcia_ATX on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. It's just Alex Garcia. Sign up for Marketing Exam if you want a bunch of free playbooks like this, where we discuss different frameworks. We digest it into how you could use it. MarketingExamined.com. And then the other thing, I'm actually curious, should I change my name to Alex Examined or Alex, like something like that? I've been talking to Colin and Oren, and obviously your handle gets brought up all the time.
They are on my ass.
They are.
No, they're so on my ass.
We were talking about, I was like, it's time to kind of like transition out of Alex Garcia_ATX.
That's what they think.
Yeah. It's kind of lame.
Is it?
There's just so many ATX, like there's so many Alex Garcias. It could also be branded if it's like Alex Examined.
Yeah. Shit. I mean, I'm not the right person to ask because I'm just a little larva over here. I'm
That's
just
fair.
a little incubator.
I'm gonna read you
get
some.
my short form going.
I'm gonna read you some of these. They hit me Alexamined, Alexa Examined, like basically Mexican detective.
I like Headline Poppy.
Headline Poppy.
Come
I'm
on.
gonna read all these.
Give me the Headline
Alex
Poppy.
Blue Eyes. I don't even have blue eyes.
Yeah.
Alex Blue, Detective Garcia, Alex Examined, Detective Garcia. Like
You should fully rebrand to the Headline Poppy.
Oh no, Colin said Alex Examines. I think that's actually pretty good.
Oh yeah, that's
right.
solid. Yeah.
All right, that's a wrap.
All right. By the way, please, a like, a review. It goes a long way. We've been growing a lot recently, and it's 100%, a delayed response to the boosts and reviews we got from everyone leaving them for hats. And so, that stuff really helps us grow. If you're getting value out of this pod, please share it with somebody, or just leave us a like or even a comment. Tell us what you did like. And yeah, we're doing these free games for any of our listeners. I mean, Alex has people in his DMs with millions of followers begging him to write playbooks for him. And if you just leave a review and like our podcast, we'll literally do one for you on the podcast.
Yep.
So that's a wrap for us. We'll catch y'all next week.